At this point in time, it is my great pleasure to introduce Betsy Bair as the moderator of this wonderful panel.
Thank you, Francis. Am I on?
Hello? I think I turned it on. Oh, there I am.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Betsy Bair, and I'm Director of Content and Editorial for MeetingsNet, Penton Publishing. I'll tell you a little bit about what I do, and then I'm going to ask each of our panelists to tell you a little bit about themselves, and then I'll talk about the format for the morning. We publish several magazines for meeting professionals, corporate meetings and incentives, medical meetings, association meetings, and Religious Conference Manager magazine. We also have MeetingsNet.com, which is our website, and we do educational webinars for meeting professionals and a lot of other products other than just print magazines nowadays. So I'm so excited to be here. I would like to mention that Corporate Meetings and Incentives every year does a list of the top 25 independent meeting and incentive management companies in North America. And our esteemed panelists each represent companies that are always on that list. And that list changes a little bit every year, and we'll hear a little bit about that in a minute when Steve introduces himself. But I would like to turn things over and ask Steve O'Malley to introduce himself, and then Faye Beauchine and Manny MacGregor.
Great. Thanks, Betsy. So I'm Steve O'Malley. I think my title up there is probably 3 weeks old. It's changed a little bit with the news that came out about 2 weeks ago that Maritz has acquired Experience. So now I have responsibility for our Maxvantage strategic alliance between Maritz Travel and American Express, serving the strategic meetings management market. And I also have overarching responsibility now for the Experience business unit as part of Maritz Travel Company, working to integrate that into what will become the Maritz Travel platform as we go forward. So good morning to everybody. Thanks for having us.
Hello, I'm Faye Beauchine, and I'm president of AMEA U.S. region. And this is a company that has experience in loyalty management and marketing services. You may have known us as Carlson Marketing in years past, and we recently rebranded to the company named AMEA. So we're a large global company. We're in 34 countries. We have about 3,800 employees. And I'll focus today mainly on my comments on the experience on the U.S. market, where we practice employee, channel, and customer loyalty.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mary MacGregor. I'm the Vice President of Account Development for BCD M&I. BCD M&I is a part of the BCD Holdings family. We operate meetings and events in 30 countries. My role is primarily US-based. I am responsible for our sales function and our client relationship management. I also have the privilege of serving as CITE's Global President last year actually my colleague Steve was the president of the foundation last year. I was president of CITE Global. I still remain on the global board this year as immediate past president, but am thrilled to be here, and thank you all for your participation today and your support of CITE.
Thank you. So how will the next hour or so look? Well, CITE International Foundation has done some very groundbreaking research, I think, on the views of both qualifiers and non-qualifiers of group travel incentive programs. And so after each of the panelists dives a little bit deeper into the three parts of the study, we're going to bring it back down to what everyone in this room is interested in, how it affects us in terms of trends. Well, certainly I'm going to ask questions, but we welcome questions from the audience as well. And we do plan to talk about the GSA scandal, but we're going to kind of leave that toward the end of the session and try to get our panelists' views on that as well. So, Steve, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Great. So we definitely want this to be interactive. So as we're going through it, if there's a concept that you'd like to comment on, have an additional question on, please let us know. We will ask you to take the mic, I guess, because this is being taped. We want to make sure that we get the questions on the record as well. And plenty of time for question and answers. This is not going to be us simply spewing to you, I promise you. But we want to focus on some research that we executed last year. It was taking a look from the participant's viewpoint at what incentive travel has become, and really with an eye toward how do they view it now after in a post-recession era. So we when you look at incentive travel as it is, it really is a business asset. It's an investment. It can be used for employee engagement. It can be used for recognition. It can be used to drive performance short-term and long-term. And we, as an industry, need to view it as just that. It's no longer just the trip fulfillment. It's not just about the destination and the hotel. It needs to be about driving business performance. And one of the ways that we believe that you do that is by focusing on how it impacts and affects the individual who's participating. And my eyes are not that good, but I'm going to put these up. Really, this is about, as much as anything, it's about employee engagement as well. If you look at some recent studies, PwC said that 95% of executives are concerned about retaining their key employees. Critical now, I actually see in our industry with some of the recent announcements, people in very high-level jobs taking positions elsewhere. I think the labor market has finally tightened up in our industry enough where we're going to see that people are out looking and they're going to be able to find positions because the industry itself is growing. 47% of top performers are currently looking for a job. It's a pretty scary thought. You've got your best people who are saying, hey, this has been a rough 3 or however many years. What else might be out there for me? And 1 in 3 employees are feeling dissatisfied and disloyal. That's a really discouraging thing. Now, the great news is when incentive travel is applied correctly, we can change all of those things, all of those statistics into our favor. So in the past, when we've looked at incentive travel, we've surveyed to death both buyers and sellers of incentive travel. So we know exactly what, I guess, hoteliers as a group think about incentive travel and what they believe is most motivating. We've tried to, probably with less success, select the buyers of incentive travel, the actual end corporate buyers, in order to get their view, because that's critical to anybody that's either in the end supplier or in the intermediary position to understand what is motivating them. But we've been missing something that's critically important, and that really is the participant. This is all about influencing the emotions, the human behavior of the people that are enrolled in these programs. So what CITE Foundation did last year was commission a study that we did in conjunction with the Incentive Travel Council and in conjunction with Monmouth University, Dr. Scott Jeffrey, who is a renowned scholar when it comes to motivation and incentives. And we put together a survey, and it went out to 6,000 individuals. We have 1,000 respondents. So the data that we're talking about today is incredibly powerful, and actually you can use it as directional. It's statistically significant. So what we wanted to do was find out what was really meaningful, what was motivational, and then what was memorable about incentive travel from the participant standpoint. And as Betsy mentioned, that's both from the people who earn it as well as those who didn't earn it. We found that we felt like that was going to be a critical component to see, are the people getting turned off, those that don't earn it? And we have some statistics to share around that. We're actually doing a really good job when it comes to that. So as I said, this has been broken down, and I think each of us are going to take on a different pillar of the results around meaningful, motivational, and memorable, and tell you a little bit deeper into the results that we found. And I'm going to start that off by really talking about meaningful. And by meaningful, I want to make sure that we understand that is really, are the goals clearly defined? Are they fair and attainable? And is there effective communication going on around what those goals are and your progress toward those? What we found was that we're doing a really good job here. 77% of the people that responded said, yes, I believe I understand what the goal is, it's clearly defined, and I think I have a shot at getting there. So that's really good news for the companies that are using this. They're doing a great job in setting a target that people understand and feel like, yes, I've got a shot at doing that. I think where, in addition to that, if I could see this clearly, so the other part of this is, do I think it's achievable? Oh, thank you. Is it attainable? So not only do they understand where it's going, but they actually believe they have a shot at getting there, which is critical, because even if they understand the goal, but they feel like it's out of reach, they will immediately shut off. So a good story around that relative to how the industry is performing. Where I think we have vast room for improvement here. 39% of the respondents said they're not getting effective and regular enough communication about how they're progressing toward their objectives. So, you know, it's kind of like the tree falling in the forest and no one's around, does it make a noise? You know, there's huge investments being put against this. We as an industry need to get better at keeping that engagement level throughout the incentive campaign. And that's really simple stuff that we can do. I mean, think about, you know, how social media has just taken off in the past few years. We can add a portion of social media to our communications campaign and have people ping out there to understand what they're doing. This is really simple stuff, but I actually think that we need to look at even the communications campaign around an incentive, whether it's a 12-month or a 3-month or whatever, as an ongoing opportunity for engagement and an ongoing opportunity to tie not only this program, but the individuals back to the core values and business objectives that the company has. So immediate things that can be done. Hold company meetings when you have company town halls, et cetera. Make sure that this is part of the messaging. Make sure that people understand this campaign's going on, here are how people are progressing, and make sure that the executives are, when they're out talking with their individual employees that are working through this, that this is a focus of part of the conversation. By simply talking about it, we're showing that it has great importance to the company, great importance to the executive. So really simple fixes around this, but it's critical in order to maximize the investment that we're putting against this effort. Mary?
Great. So when we talk a little bit and look at what the participant feedback was with regards to the motivational aspect, a couple of things first to tee up. I mean, this is the segment of the research that really addressed the question, you know, what is it that I'm willing to work really hard to achieve? So what am I going to work really hard for? And so initially there were some validations around the important aspects of an incentive travel program that do motivate them. And so rounding out the top of that list were things that anecdotally we've all kind of believed to be the case, and this study actually validated. So 60% of the participants said that they really valued the opportunity to interact with the high-level executives. 72% said that they really liked the opportunity to build relationships outside of a work environment with their peers. That was an important aspect, and that was motivational for them to be able to earn the right to be in that environment. They all said, and probably the two highest things that came out were that they really value the unique experience. So it's making sure, as all of us are involved in some aspect of the incentive travel programming, that whole notion of what can I do on this travel program that I can't do on my own? What's the unique aspect? What's that surprise and delight element that I can't do by myself? That's a key aspect that motivates the participants. And also just across the board, there was validation that they really value the recognition aspect of achieving an incentive travel program. If we look at the next slide, you know, we asked sort of what are the triggers of what you're looking for when you go on an incentive travel program, and some, again, of the higher rated or higher noted aspects were, you know, across the board, over 70% said that they'd like fewer mandated functions. And we've seen that change, right? So we've seen kind of less of the standard programming where everyone went on the tour together, everyone did that. And sort of, you know, the other thing is then that leads into, again, really high feedback on, I'd like more time on my own. I'd like more, you know, free time to be able to select what it is that I'm interested in and passionate about seeing within the destination. And then they also said from a feedback perspective that they really like being asked about the destination choice, and they like having it switched up. So this whole notion as companies who plan incentives, you know, many of our clients look to switch it up. They might do a fun and sun destination one year, Europe another, cruise a third. So that still resonates strongly for their participants. They like the idea of kind of that being switched up. A couple other interesting things that came out of the motivational aspect that I just want to comment on, and one is to kind of segue additionally from Steve's comment about communication. And not only do they want more clear communication about the rule structure, but they'd like more communication about the destination and what they're going to experience so that they really can plan ahead and create the vision about the experience. So that's another thing from a communication aspect to keep in mind. And it was another thing that was interesting is there was a specific question asked about all-inclusives and whether or not that was a motivating factor that the ultimate trip was an all-inclusive experience. And it was very kind of marginal to low response. So I think that would tell us a couple of things. Number one, if you're an all-inclusive product, maybe there's more work to do just in terms of educating the participants and buyers about the experience. And secondly, is it the participants who are driving that choice, or is it the planners and the budget that's driving the choice? So maybe some more for those of you who have an all-inclusive product. Just I think that was just sort of an interesting scenario that there was really kind of a no comment or no real feel about that. So a couple of interesting things. Faye?
Okay, well, being from Minneapolis, I'd like to relate this next section of research to Todd Beamer, who was the gentleman and the American hero on United Flight 93, who wrestled the hijackers to the ground of the aircraft and prevented that airplane from crashing into the White House. His wife, Lisa Beamer, wrote a book, and she dedicated a chapter to the memory of the incentive trip they had taken the week before that experience. And they had gone to Hawaii, and she talks about the impact of that trip on her and her husband because he worked so hard to achieve the award. She talked about standing on the beach and looking at the ocean with him. And so we know in this industry intuitively that memorable experiences as part of the motivational award impact people the rest of their lives. And what we didn't know in the industry was how exactly until this real groundbreaking research came through from CITE, which told you what parts of the program can really produce those memorable events and make it long-lasting and have an impact on the human being. So long that it lasts for a lifetime. And probably all of you have heard this, that incentive programs have changed people for a lifetime. So let me just take you through 2 slides that discuss the intensity of the award on the participants, and then also the impact of the award. So the purpose of this piece of research was to understand how engaging experiences result in short-term and long-term value, both for the participant themselves and then for the corporate sponsor or the organization. So this study looks at a few things, and let's get onto the next slide. Okay, it looks at the executive interaction that happened on the program and how meaningful that is, the uniqueness of the experience, the peer relationships, and then recognition in general. And again, it talks about the participant's viewpoint and also the impact on the organization. So the most demonstrable outcome of this piece of research is that the peer recognition of being on the program and being recognized by your corporation had by far the strongest impact. And when a number of us all study our own clients quite a bit, and it's not just being recognized for that winning value, but being on the stage at the event and being recognized long after, and even those who didn't make the trip being recognized possibly for being nominated for the trip, and how a company carries through these recognition practices before, during, and after the event. The second most valuable part of this research was the peer relationships that an individual can establish by being on the program, and how memorable some of those peer relationships become over time, and how helpful they are in doing their work in the future. And then the unique experiences, and many of the people here in this audience today really understand this point about how unique it must be, and how an individual who wins the award cannot replicate this experience on their own easily for any amount of money, because they can't replicate the group experience, they can't replicate the tingle and the excitement of the moment when they hear the bagpipe playing in the Scottish castle. They just can't do that on their own. So we all understand that. And then the last is executive interaction on the trip. And corporations and individuals answer this question quite differently, depending on the culture, and depending on the practice, and depending on what executives come on the program. But in general, it's very important for executives to show up at programs and to recognize. So just a couple of high-level results from this study. 88.6% of those who earned the reward agreed that they felt very appreciated by their host company. So that's a very, very strong statistic, and that an individual will say that. 73% of the earners reported an increased feeling of loyalty toward the company, and that loyalty does translate usually into future increased productivity for the organization. And 77% of the award earners said that earning the award increased their feeling of being part of the company. So when you look at this slide and you see the middle section, which says loyalty, trust, belongingness, it means, are you committed? Do you feel committed to your company? Do you trust your company? And do you feel aligned with the company's business objectives because this incentive program was offered to you and you earned it? And the answer to that resoundingly is yes. It's one of the strongest tools in the market that produces those kinds of alignment. And that's what we mean by long-term value of an incentive program. Not just the short term, I had a great time, I can come home and boast to my neighbors and feel very proud of that achievement, but I have a long-term alignment and trust in my organization because they offered to do this for me. And so when we're talking to corporations who are considering, should I have incentive travel programs as part of my toolkit or my arsenal to help motivate my employees, the answer is a resounding yes, because there is clear evidence now with this CITE study that this builds trust, alignment, and commitment, and a sense of belongingness to the corporation. And that keeps employees at a corporation, and it keeps retention strong. Steve's opening point about people are shopping, and you know, about half of top performers are looking to go elsewhere. They don't if they are treated to incentive programs that are run properly. Okay, we'll look at the second slide. One of the things we found out in the study as we measured the intensity of the event or of a particular part of a program versus its emotional impact is that CSR programs, as they are often conducted, don't have the impact that we thought they had, and team building exercises may not have the impact that we thought they did, especially if a whole day is taken out of a program to conduct, to go to work. And this is a point that CITE wants to study more in the future, because prior to this, there was a prevailing thought that CSR activities were absolutely essential and critical to build motivation on these programs. So now we know they really aren't. And this study was done with over 1,000 participants. And that's a very good sample to help us understand this. So what can companies do here to still align their employees on these programs with their company causes? Well, that's really the answer, is if you have a properly designed activity that really aligns with your corporate brand and is really part of what you've been practicing every day at your corporation, then it will have an impact. But when you just pick a CSR activity in a location because it happens to be the thing going on there, it doesn't have an impact and it doesn't translate into the emotional value that you think it would. So there's much more to read about this particular point, but we found that a significant new learning. So we have to study how to do this better in the future in the design and the delivery of incentive programs. Okay. So in creating a great program, the things to consider, it's pretty simple. Along the horizontal axis, you have to consider the participants' needs and really what they're thinking. And to do this, companies really need to get data on their participants. They must research their points of view all the time so that they understand exactly how they're changing and how they deliver. And if they do, they get a winning situation. If they don't do that and just apply the corporate objectives without combining the participant's point of view, you can have a win-lose situation, the lower right-hand quadrant of this. Likewise, if a company only wants to focus on its objectives and is not going to take into account frequently its participants' point of view, you can have a win-lose in the upper left-hand quadrant. And of course, the ideal is to balance the participant point of view with the company's objectives, both short and long term, and create that win-win situation. And that takes getting the data, studying the data, and creating insights that really help people design good programs. Okay, next slide. So this is called a word cloud. And this is a great way to depict data in a more meaningful, easy to understand way. And that is, instead of giving you a bunch of numbers, we're giving you the words that the numbers translate to, or the insight. And it shows that trust and loyalty and the length of trip and the amount of free leisure time, as Mary talked about, are really, really important aspects in the design of a program. And if we don't listen to these and we don't have fair rule structures for programs, you know, they just may not be as strong as you think they'll be as a corporation. And so it's pretty clear on this what the strong characteristics of a program are. Now, where do I find out more about what Mary, Steve, and I have been talking about? It is really going to the CITE global.org website, where these studies are delineated in great detail. There are some paper copies available of these studies. However, we urge you to be green and just go download it on your computer and study it there. But this is free to members. Get a first look at the research. Later, the general public has access to all of our research. And the reason we have such good research is we have sponsors that help us conduct this research. Okay? Now, where does our research emanate from? It emanates from a panel that is the largest, most comprehensive global panel, because we have over 60 countries participating in our research, which means that the research we put out is not American-centric, it is global-centric. And it's important for corporations because all of our corporations run global programs. So when they look at this data, they can draw conclusions that are accurate for global audiences. And if you are not a member of the CITE Index, all of you, including listeners online, and all of you are eligible to become a member. You go to CITE and there's a process for you to enroll in the panel, because you're experts in this business and your opinion should be engaged on the panel.
If I just might add also anecdotally, you know, this particular research is designed to really be utilized and really impact business decisions in a really relevant and timely way. I hear from people all over the world on how they use the research. They take it into client meetings when they're talking particularly here about program design. Many of our colleagues are required by their organizations to submit whether it's monthly or quarterly trend updates. Where's the industry heading? What are the relevant topics, and how are we going to impact our business decisions? And they're using this research for that. So really, don't think of it as just interesting information, but really think about how you can take it and translate it into a business tool for you, because that's when I think it's most impactful.
And Mary, if I could just add to that, I would also ask, if you have an idea, if you have an issue that you'd like for us to research, please send us those requests. We're constantly looking for topical information to go out and take a look at through the panel. The CITE Foundation's Research Committee is active. We do anywhere between 4 and 6 CITE Index small studies each year, as opposed to a very large undertaking like this. And they're very topical. It's, we have one in the field right now around buyer sentiments. So, as these ideas or issues come up, please let us know through the CITEglobal.org website, and we are always looking for research ideas that help the industry and help you.
Okay. And finally, I'll just talk about the 3 events that CITE sponsors, and these are all 3 fundraising events that raise the dollars that pay for the research we just talked about. And they're very, very important because it accomplishes 2 things. Not only do we raise dollars and euro to pay for the research, we also provide networking opportunities at these 3 events. And those networking opportunities are very strong because all the players in the business attend this. So the first one is CITE Night in Europe, which is coming up at IMEX, and that is Monday, May 21st. And then the CITE Classic, which is the annual fundraising golf tournament where all the proceeds go to research, is being held in Aspen this year. And we really encourage your attendance and support of that event. And it will be a sellout. People sign up for this very quickly. And then CITE Night North America takes place in conjunction with and is the night before the opening of the large IMEX show in Las Vegas, which is the preeminent trading place now for incentives and event travel in Las Vegas. So we encourage your attendance and support of these events.
I just also might add that another area that the CITE Foundation does fund, because their tenet and their real focus is research and education, and that last year we were able to work in partnership to launch an education endowment for our chapters. So I believe that CITE Florida took part in that and submitted a proposal so that through the foundation received funding to help support education, relevant speakers, just a key event. And that will be an ongoing annual program. It was really well received and very positive feedback. So again, we're looking not only to create the tools from a research standpoint, but then also making it relevant on how you as a chapter can really use it to impact your own events.
Great. I'm going to kick things off with a question and a comment about the corporate social responsibility piece. I found that so interesting because it really has been a big trend, I'd say ever since the AIG effect, that many companies and corporations want to incorporate a CSR event in order to give back to the community, do a feel-good. We at Medical Meetings sponsor a pharmaceutical meeting management forum for meeting planners. We did it in Orlando a few weeks ago. We did our first CSR event, and it was with Clean the World. I'm not sure that you're all familiar with it, but it was a great tie-in, I thought, to our theme and mission, because it's hotels who take the recycled soap and recycle it in plants in Orlando and Las Vegas and ship it off to third world countries and save lives of children who have very poor hygiene. So the tie-in for both the meeting professionals who can request it at their event and the hoteliers who were there, and Orlando just happens to have a facility. So it was meaningful. I think people remembered it, and it was also a team-building experience. It certainly wasn't mandatory, but we also had a panel of these 3 nonprofits saying, please, please don't stop doing CSR events. We can figure out together how to make it more meaningful for your attendees. Faye, do you want to speak a little bit more to that?
I think we're not saying that CSR events aren't meaningful, because they certainly are. We're saying that the research showed that not in all cases do they have a great impact on the participant. And it depends on how well aligned. Your event sounds like it was very well aligned with your corporate social responsibility goals. It depends on how well aligned. I think what we are saying that if you just choose an event in a destination and take people out to do team building at a CSR activity that they can't relate to, then it isn't very impactful. What we're saying is think through this process or make the whole event itself an eco experience, for example. We had experience with one of our clients in creating a very green event from beginning to end, and throughout the entire time the participants were notified at how green they were being by being together. There wasn't a shred of paper there, and all the foods were local and natural and so on. And at the end, they rated it very high because they felt they were part of an eco experience and a give back to the community experience. In another one, for example, in South Africa, the items used at the final night event were all made by a local village around and provided employment for three months for that village. And that was well known to the participants that they were contributing to the economy, and they were enjoying some of the clothing and things made for them for that event. That's what we mean is the connection has to be strong with the community that it's in or with the corporate goals and the brand. You just can't do one for the sake of doing one because people just won't have the impact for it. So they're good to do. It's how they're done, and it's with what frequency. And there just has to be a lot of thinking and planning around it. And I think it's incumbent on all of us to help our clients and to help corporations think through what they're doing and match up what you have locally to offer with what their real values are.
Can you speak a little bit to the team building effect? Sure. Now, the short-term impact was there, but not long-term. Do you have any tips, any of you, for perhaps improving our team building exercises?
Anyone want to go first? I'll comment, but I'll let someone else speak first.
Well, I think that what we've seen is the trend towards team building and CSR kind of merging, so that a team building event is typically incorporating that CSR. I think that it really resonates with the points that Faye made. So it's whether or not it has to be meaningful and relevant, and I think the randomness of some of the programming is really something that we should, as professionals, kind of take a step back and really examine. I think that there are really good examples of how a team building event or a CSR event absolutely makes sense and aligns with the corporate vision and goals. I'll give an example. We've got one of our clients who, as a corporation, they do a significant amount of work with the Red Cross. So every year, the destination that they hold their incentive, they look to do something to give back to the local Red Cross. The participants know that, they understand it, they feel good about it, and it's become it's actually become an indelible part of that incentive travel experience. So I think that those are the kinds of things that I would suggest we kind of look towards, as we're planning professionals. The other suggestion, and I know I meet with suppliers and hotels and destination management companies all the time, and one of the things they'll always ask is, how can we be a better partner? How can we be more strategic? So my suggestion to them is, if you know who the client is, do your homework and go to the website, understand where they put their value as an organization, and in your proposals or in your recommendations, show how you can, whether it's in your hotel, whether it's in your destination, reinforce what they publicly state as their mission to giving back in some way. So I think that's a way that you also can do value add and hopefully differentiate yourself.
You go, and then I'll go.
Okay, great. So what I would also say is that, I think a lot of what we found as a result of this research was that whether it was CSR or team building, it was simply a bolt-on. It didn't fit in. It wasn't part of the theme or brand, if you will, of the company. So it has to make sense. It has to be part of what the company is trying to achieve and even how you structure it. You know, just like any strategy can work as long as everybody believes in it and gets behind it, I think any CSR or team building event can work if it's aligned to the brand. I mean, we have a good example of a company that they felt like that there was just unhealthy competition between the regions. And what they wanted to do, and they stated that we want to be one company. So as part of a team building exercise, and this happened to be, you know, sounds really funny, it was hilarious to watch the video of it. It was a bunch of tennis balls dropped into the ocean and used for essentially crossword puzzles on the beach. So, you know, we had 300 people diving into the ocean to go get these tennis balls and do these crossword puzzles. It was, you know, a frantic thing, but there was thought put behind it relative to you're not simply going to get together with your friends, your regional department. Instead, we interspersed the 4 teams with various people from different parts of the organization in order to really live into this, we want to be one company. That memorability of that experience really added to the effect of breaking down the barriers between the regions and making the company show up more as one. So, you know, I think, you know, for our entire industry, we need to be thinking back, again, from the company back. What does the company's brand stand for? What is the company's objectives in this year for this year? And then we can build the right activities, whether it's team building or anything else, and the right agenda around that. And it does come down to, you know, the individuals. How are we going to affect change with regard to how we're putting this agenda together? So, you know, if we can just do that instead of simply taking out, you know, the standard thing from our playbook, then we're going to improve the view of this as a tool for corporations to use to improve performance.
I have one final thought on team building that's both for CSR and just non-CSR, but just pure fun team building that improves networking and camaraderie and teamwork inside a company. And that is, if you can keep it educational, there isn't a person in the world who doesn't want to learn. Everybody has a curious mind that's in a top performing group. They, by definition, aren't there. They don't have a curious, sort of aggressive mind. And so if it can be kept educational, and the second is if it can be in an event that has a celebrity in it or a person they wouldn't otherwise meet, a professor or a broadcaster, a unique individual. And people tend to remember those kind of speakers and people they engage with. And I'll give you an example of an event we ran for a client. Because sharks are a threatened species, we worked with the University of Miami in tagging a shark, and we tagged it with the company's logo. And the tagging device traces the shark's activity for a year. And the contribution to do that, it goes to the University of Miami to sustain the studies of sharks. And so the corporation gets a thrill out of the fact they're helping the shark species survive. Everybody wins in this, right? They feel that they get to go out and tag the shark with the University of Miami, and they are able to watch the shark for a year online where it's swimming. And so that's the sustaining the value of the activity. And when this happened with one of our clients, the participants on the boat said this was the experience of a lifetime, and they will never forget it their entire life, being this close to a shark. And so it's a win-win-win when you can find something like that in your community that is a local event. That happened in Florida, right here where you all live. And so thinking through and finding what's the next best shark for our activities is always the thing that we have to be doing, because there's always something right around the corner like that, where there's a need, and it's also fun, and it's also life-changing to be able to do that.
And just to reiterate, too, with this CSR event we did a few weeks ago, the tips from our panel, from the CEO of Clean the World, Sean Zeitler, said, same thing with an incentive program. Give them, communicate far enough out so people know what the CSR event's about and how it aligns to your mission. While you're there, give metrics if you can. For instance, we cleaned 460 bars of soap, and we felt pretty darn good about that. And then, as you discussed, follow up with photos, whether it's from the village in Africa. I love this Red Cross idea. Send pictures afterwards of whatever you've left behind. Make sure that you, as the meeting organizer, along with your destination, along with your CSR partner, make sure that event lives year-long. And people remember, and that will make it more impactful as well. So I thought those are some pretty good tips. Let's move on to a couple of questions I had about the meaningful section. Steve, maybe you want to talk about this. I think